How about you? You have a nickname?
I'm not a rapper. I just run, you have the InsurTech RAP. I know it's a different rap. Look at me.
I'm not.
Since I became an investment banker, I started to dress up. I need to clean my I shave almost once a week. I need to make sure that
Yeah, I gotta do
everything
the
is like.
opposite. I try to be down to earth and cool.
Well, you are. Well, I have a hoodie somewhere here. Oh, no, actually, yeah, no, that's behind me to make sure that it's comfortable. A little bit of padding there, right? Well, I used to be cool. Now it's all about compliance, my friend. Compliance, compliance,
Hey, man.
compliance.
That's cool though too. It's cool. Everybody's talking about compliance. It's a great area. So I think maybe you're cooler than you realize. You're ahead of the game. You didn't even know it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that so Don, the compliance officer, will be happy with me.
Let me ask you a question about that, and it relates to insurance and AI. So I was looking at a really interesting AI website today for legal contracts. So it's generating legal contracts automatically, reviewing contracts, and spitting out proposed language.
Interesting.
And something that really kind of hit me, because I think AI is going to have an impact on all the work that we're all doing, is around compliance, and not only compliance, but also the way people practice law, the way law is interpreted. I feel, and one of the features of the system was actually explain to me in English what this contract does. It was kind of an interesting summary tool. So ingests a contract, looks at the contract, 50 pages, it spits out in plain English. I think they call it like, tell me like a kindergartner what this contract is, and it actually summarizes the entire contract in a paragraph. Then there's another button, give me topics to negotiate. Like, where would you start? And again, it's a new tool, and I'm sure it has a long ways to go. But the tool actually highlights 5 areas that I would start negotiating on if I were to negotiate this contract. I feel like everything in the world of compliance and law is going to change with tools like this, because so much of it is, do you have the right people interpreting? Do you have the right people building the agreements? Do you have the right context? This feels like it's all going to change. And when I hear about FINRA issuing a 200-page document, can we not just automate the compliance and automate that everything is done the right way? I just feel like there's a lot of opportunities here. And I also think, by the way, that's going to lower some potential risk associated with that as well. Maybe that changes the way things are insured.
Okay, so let's start one by one. And again, I'm more on the careful side nowadays, unlike previously that when we were founders and entrepreneurs, it's all about, okay, let's move fast, break things, then go back and say sorry. Nowadays, I'm all about, okay, this is the framework, what we can do. And because I'm not 100% sure, I will avoid from talking, especially because it's recorded, on anything that may relate to that side of the business. So that would be a big no-no for us every time. Now, given there are all kinds of caveats, we are not talking about any investment specific thing. So we are basically in the clear, because at the end of the day, it's all about make no harm, especially like every other regulator. It's all about make sure that you don't make harm to the people. Now, back to your question about AI. Yes and no, right? When we are looking at ChatGPT and all those lovely things, it's all about the NPL and can they actually understand or make sense and figure out what are the main things in that document. Now, you'll ask lawyers, they making money from making things overly complicated. Why? Because that serves them. First of all, you sound very smart if you use a high level English, and you can keep your job and make sense of things if you are the only person who can actually read it. So it's a beautiful defense mode for your business. Now, from there, it falls into what I recommend different entrepreneurs have at least two types of lawyers. The very expensive one that will have the right brand name or recognized name, and then have the one that you're actually talking to, that you pay them 400 an hour, not 1400 an hour. The 400, the one that actually writes your day-to-day contract, or if you need something to go over, right? Now, is AI is there? Can they actually produce and understand what the contract and then summarize it for you? You know, you go to the ChatGPT, you type in, I don't know if you're using 3 or 4, whatever, and please provide me simplified, short it. Again, it's AI just learns what that machine digested earlier. So yeah, I'm not sure. Then, you know, if we are putting some sort of a lawyer's hat, if there is a mistake, who is liable? Do we have a
Right.
D&O policy for AI already? It's a, oh my God, we can go such a down a rabbit hole on this one. That will be
I think that's
brilliant.
coming up. I almost think it's inevitable, you know?
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
I'm more bullish, perhaps. I do think there's impediments like the fact that there's a whole industry created around uh, law and the
Mm-hmm.
complexity of law, and this could be extrapolated to any other industry as well. And I think what happens when you bring in new tools like AI, it doesn't eliminate, jobs, or it just changes the nature of them.
Yep.
But
Hmm.
using this tool as an example, this one that I found this morning, I do think it's going to change the nature of both drafting
Mm-hmm.
agreements as well as litigating and arbitrating agreements. Because I think what a big part of, and again, just using law as an example, a big part of the process, say you're a startup and you're trying to figure out what kind of coverages you should have for your business. I think a big part of that process is actually interpreting your business to a lawyer or someone who's on the contract side, and they have to do the hard work of now looking at precedent and figuring out what might apply to your business based on the way that I've described it to you. And I think inevitably my inability to describe it or their inability to understand it will always create gaps. And I think as AI models grow, those gaps become smaller and smaller. And then the flip side is that when you get into these, say, business deals, there will be less room for interpretation as those contracts become stronger. And then, by the way, I think the actual litigation slash arbitration of those contracts changes as well. I could see a world where an AI engine takes an agreement, takes a situation objectively, compares it to the agreement, and literally declares party A is at fault, party B is at fault, because based on the way the contract's written, this is the factual interpretation of who's right and who's wrong.
Hmm. Okay, a lot to process. We can break it down and rebuild it again, because I think that the analogy of lawyers, that will be more to the extreme side or the more complex, right? And even if we are dealing with insurance, which is a one-sided agreement, right? And that's why the claimant, or sorry, the policyholder is always on the good side if it reaches court. It's much more complex than we appreciate. And at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, the role, and as you said, it's evolving, right? So the role of the agent or the role of the lawyer is to give you the right advice. So at the beginning, like everything else, we need to start with something simple. You know, a simple model, as we used to call it in electrical engineering. Yeah, you have one entity in space that has this type of a charge. Now, at the end of the day, in the exam, it will be 500 entities with superposition, with all kinds of whatever that may be there. But before we adding this n level of complication, I had a coffee last week or 2 weeks ago with the lawyer, and he was, going down memory lane. It's like, yeah, back in his day, there used to be typewriters. People used to type. That was the job. The lawyer would go like, I would never type. Are you kidding me? That's for the secretaries. And that's more or less how that guy started his career within the law. Needless to say, now he's a little bit older, but today we look at, can you type fast? That's part of a lawyer's skill. So now when you enter AI, ChatGPT, etc., that's a new skill that you actually need to know how to ask questions so you can get ChatGPT to spit out the right answers that you need. So it's not just about consuming, processing, and providing you the information, but also you telling the machine what's the right result. So it's going to do a certain shift in the way that we approach and work with the AI. So if you are an insurance agent or a lawyer, you will need to know how to work, not just, hey, dictate, then later on type yourself. You will need to know if it's dealing with AI. You need to know how to ask the right questions so you can get the right answers. And I think that there are a few more steps before it will tell us exactly who against whom and why. But it's going to throw a wrench in so many different things. I wonder how the education system is going to deal with it.
I wonder too. It makes you ponder a lot about what is relevant to education nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better to continue to teach the fundamentals, or is it better to start thinking about where technology is going and teach today's young people how to address that technology and better use it? And I think it's a tough question. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. No, man, I'm sorry. If I can ramble on all kinds of different topics. Do we want to talk about insurance?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about insurance.
So let's start with your rapping history, career. So how did I love the format of the InsurTech RAP? How did you come up with that?
So I'm relatively new in InsurTech, right? I started my kind of career in the InsurTech space about 5 years ago when I was working at Comcast. And I was actually not focused on insurance, but smart home. And as I learned that there is some applicability for smart home technology in insurance, aka HIPAA, where I eventually wound up at, I started networking and just trying to figure out who could teach me about the insurance industry. And while there were some things that I wanted to learn on my own, there was quite a bit of detail around the industry that I thought was, better learned from people that I met. So I'm a consummate networker. I love talking to people. I love getting feedback. And most of the few years that I spent learning about InsurTech were just going to conferences and meeting people. And my feeling is that kind of the best opportunity at these conferences is just having casual conversations with people. So during the pandemic, folks like you started doing podcasts. I started listening to them a lot. And while it helps me understand the details of the industry, it's the kind of more casual conversations that kind of put the bow on it for me. And as I look at all the great resources like yourself to teach people about InsurTech, the part that I felt like was kind of missing was just the casual community piece outside of the conferences. And the conferences are great, and I love them, and I try to go to as many of them as I can. But it's hard, right? It's hard for people to travel. It's hard. Some people still are not comfortable traveling. It's hard to expense travel. So my thinking sometime late last year was, wouldn't it be great to have a forum that wasn't necessarily just about education, but also about networking and kind of to get to know one another in a relatively small community. So InsurTech RAP was birthed. I think it was the fall of last year. I had an experimental online session where I just, emailed a bunch of people that I knew and said, "Hey, 3 Thursdays from now, we're going to have an hour-long session where we talk about all things InsurTech. I got a couple speakers. I believe my first panel was a few VCs in the space, and we're going to talk openly about InsurTech funding, and we're going to make it a live Zoom format that anyone can ask questions, and it shouldn't just be us talking to the audience. It should be the audience engaging as well. And it was awkward and it went well, but it wasn't like perfect.
Uh-huh.
But I got excited by it because candidly, a lot of people sent me email that was kind of fun and interesting, a little bit different. And to my objective, I just wanted to create community and something outside of what already existed. So I kind of doubled down on the format over the next couple months where I've tried different approaches, uh, prearranging a panel, uh, allowing people to randomly sign up for time slots, different times, different formats, different length of times. And I'm still, I think, yet to perfect the exact kind of format that I want to move forward on. But what I do know is that the concept of engaging the audience, the concept of having speakers who may not necessarily be the normal speakers at a conference, the concept of people having opinions versus being factual and having an environment where they feel safe to have conversations, despite the fact that I record it, is, I think, important. And my vision for InsurTech RAP is that it becomes much bigger than me planning sessions, but something that perhaps other people can lead, that other people can participate in. For instance, this Thursday, I actually can't do it. I've got a board meeting. And I was thinking in my mind, boy, it would have been great if someone like yourself jumped in and actually took the panel this week versus me. Because instead of canceling it, why? Maybe
Keep
some
it
people
going.
cleared their
Mm-hmm.
calendar. Yeah, exactly. So my thinking is, again, this is still evolving. I've kind of committed to doing this throughout the year to kind of see what format works the best for people. People are emailing me. People are making suggestions. A lot of good feedback has come, both constructive criticism as well as some nice compliments. But to me, this is all about a community effort. And if we all go to a large conference, say next year, and we know 50 more people, 100 more people, 500 more people because of InsurTech RAP, I'll feel like it was a success. And more importantly, if the members can feel comfortable reaching out to one another, whether it be a venture capitalist or a banker or another entrepreneur that they saw on a show or somebody who asked questions, um, again, I'll think it's a successful effort. So I'm excited by the progress to date. And I really encourage people not only to attend, but also to give me the feedback on LinkedIn or email me. I post my email address
Mm-hmm.
regularly on LinkedIn. Please send me feedback and please send me thoughts on how we can improve the show.
Yeah. Listen, I love the format and I saw it evolving. And thank you for allowing me to speak and blabber on for a half an hour on one of the previous, I think it was after the winter break.
Yep.
And we
Yep.
played with that. So as COVID hit, I was still, before COVID hit, I was still running InsurTech LA, monthly meetings or every 6 to 8 weeks meetings. We had everything in person. COVID hit, no more meetings. I tried to do that or sort of a webinar kind of a thing. So, but it became such a hustle because I
Oh, it's a
wanted
lot
to
of work. Yeah.
have, I wanted to have the speaker. So basically, it was the same thing, a live event, but using a Zoom a webinar feature. So I'll have the same that we have in conversation. I'll have someone and then need to do a lot of marketing, a new type of marketing to bring people on. So it was too early, had to educate people about this new medium and content. And I think that I've done maybe 3 of those, decided that, yeah, no. I just pre-record it, add a little bit of editing, and then you get in love with, do all kinds of cool stuff and play and give it to a certain graphic editor to play with it and go like, you're not good, let's try someone else, a different style. What was the other one? There was, just at the beginning of COVID, there was this startup that raised a lot of money to have kind of conversations.
Oh, Clubhouse.
Yes,
Clubhouse.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is his name? Thomas from Germany. He played a lot with that. but also it started, there was a nice spike, but then it sort of, with Clubhouse itself, I'm not sure if Clubhouse is still a thing, it sort of disappeared. Um, but I love the format. It's all about
Yeah,
timing
listen,
and
I
just
think,
continue.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And for me, I'm not sure it'll ever get big, right? In the average session, we have 50, 60 people, but that's fine, right? If
Hmm.
people get value out of it and they enjoy meeting one another, like I don't need to have hundreds. I will tell you though, I was inspired
You
by,
shouldn't, in my
it's
opinion.
Twitter. Yeah, I agree. But Twitter Spaces, I think I saw a crypto piece on Twitter Spaces, and they had like 5,000 people in it, and I just thought, and people could volunteer to like come on. I thought it was a great format. It was a little confusing though, and it was very much like expert speakers talking out to the audience.
Hmm.
And I think that this community is not really about experts, right? A lot of us are pioneering. A lot of the entrepreneurs are doing hard work that's never been done before. I try to make sure that anyone who kind of wants an opportunity to talk about what they're working on has that opportunity. And I think that's kind of the beauty of where we are as an industry. And sure, many of us, like yourself, have been in the space much longer than I've been. And yet there are still new people coming up with ideas and new innovations. And I just want to help be a catalyst. I mean, it's not completely altruistic, right? As an investor, I want to find unique opportunities to invest and I want to build my brand as well.
Hmm.
But I think the industry benefits when we all benefit,
Yep.
and more importantly, we're in this together. Like we really have to rely on one another for it. So I think that that's kind of the intent with the cameras on and the Zoom format.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's great. And like anything else, you don't know until you see where it can go. For now, it's a
Yeah,
community.
absolutely.
Later, it can be something else. Also, your crowd sort of dictates a certain uh, approach or a path. Who knows where that's going to lead? You know,
Yep, I
it can
agree.
be. So, OMERS Ventures. How long have you been there?
I joined OMERS Ventures a little over a year and a quarter ago, so January of 22. It's been a great run. OMERS Ventures is the venture arm of the Pension Fund of Ontario, one of the pension funds of Ontario. OMERS is the name of the fund.
Hmm.
OMERS actually manages about 120 billion in capital, but the VC arm is about 2 billion in venture investing. And we're actually generalist investors. We invest in pretty much any kind of play. I happen to focus on InsurTech and fintech. We're also global. We've got offices in the Bay, San Francisco Bay Area, in Toronto, where our headquarters are, and then London as well. And we typically invest in Series A to Series C. Check sizes 5 to 25 million typically.
Yeah, you see, that's a way better rapper name. I'm like the A to C. Huh?
A to C, I like it.
With a pro rata and
Superetta.
in the house. That's like the worst. I used to have geekier jokes once. Yeah.
It's okay. All good.
So I know that you like all your kids the same, but who's your favorite kid? Sorry, a portfolio company.
So we have four insurtech investments, kind of traditional insurtech investments. One is ClearCover Personal Auto.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I have music starting in my headphones for
Oh,
some
cool.
reason. It's probably me. There we go. Um, One is ClearCover Personal Auto. The next is Foresight Workers Comp.
Mm-hmm.
The next is WeFox, a distribution play in Europe.
Yep.
And then most recently, I led my first investment, which I made in December of 22, a company called Join. Join is an MGA that focuses on commercial E&S risk. And yes, while I love all of my children equally, Join actually is an investment that I led. So certainly it's one that I'm excited about, whereas the others I've kind of had a chance to be involved with, but the investments were made prior to me arriving. So, uh, all of them are important. We're really excited about the whole portfolio as well as our broader portfolio. But certainly, Join, I think, is doing some really cool stuff, and that's what got me excited about them. the E&S market, I think, is just it's a booming market. I think it's underserved by
Mm-hmm.
technology, and the team at Join is just a top-notch insurance first team who has just enough tech to make them dangerous, but more importantly, they're real experts in the insurance space, and I think they're doing some real great work. So I'm excited about them.
Tell us more a little bit about the team. Are they coming? Are there insurance veterans? Are there a technology
Yeah,
company? How come the ENS space is, a little bit behind?
yeah, I'd love to. So let's just talk about the E&S space first. E&S is excess and surplus. It's generally non-standard risk. It's generally harder to underwrite the risk because it's not, homogenized. So a big part of the underwriting is, a high level of detail around the nuances of the risk. It's a space that is growing primarily because traditional risks are kind of getting dislocated from the market. And what we mean by that is things like climate or new risks like AI or cyber are pushing what is a standard kind of underwriting process out of the normal buy box. And it requires a level of bespoke underwriting that few carriers want to take on because it's just not the way that the companies are structured, nor is their technology structured. The team at Join is primarily ex AIG, ex Hamilton employees
Mm.
who executives who really have a long history of insurance. Sarina Masia, the CEO, actually has over 25 years of being in the insurance industry, typically an executive at larger insurance companies. And they saw an opportunity to take technology and standardize the underwriting process in a sector of insurance that has been complicated to standardize. And what I really love about the joint approach is that so much of E&S underwriting today is so bespoke outside of Join that when you speak to underwriters, they're often challenged because they have to take tons of forms, tons of data, and actually by hand go through a lot of that and actually do a process that's very slow and intense before they even underwrite. And this is typically done in multiple workbenches, takes a lot of time, and it's extremely complicated. More importantly, it's so cumbersome, the underwriter can't actually focus on the risk itself. Join, like many other good insurtechs, starts with kind of bringing the data into the underwriting system, augmenting it with third party data, and then making it easier for the underwriter to actually start the underwriting process. But most of that innovation has happened on the admitted side. Join is really one of the few players, and there are a couple others, but they're one of the few that have really, I think, built a very standardized approach to a very unstandard underwriting process. And what that allows the underwriter to do is instead of spending a ton of time just prepping for underwriting, they're actually spending the most time on the actual underwriting process and actually, approving the risk. And while that may seem not that big of a deal outside of insurance, from all the work that I did prepping for that investment opportunity, I saw that it's actually pretty big in the E&S space. So I'm excited about it for just a lot of reasons: the growing market, the technology standardization, the speed and scale, and the accuracy at which they're proving themselves. So it's a cool first investment for an MGA, and I think it's also cool because me, as a relatively new insurtech investor, is looking at a non-standard risk product. It's taught me a lot about the insurance industry as well.
Ooh, I can segue this to a couple of other questions, and looking at the clock, I'll try to keep it, tight a little bit on this
Sure.
one. So last week I was in last week or 2 weeks ago. Last week I was in Hartford, Connecticut. Thank you, Stacy, for the symposium and the beautiful Wavemaker prize that I received. Prize award that I received for making waves in the industry. Thank
Congratulations.
you very much. It was actually lovely, lovely.
Yeah, look great. I wish I could have attended.
Yeah, I thanked my agent and my yeah. I Yeah. There is a point that you're trying to do too many jokes on the stage, between thanking your mom, your agent, your manager. And then you said, yes, I know I'm from LA and let's do the Oscar kind of thingy. Versus I thank my agent, my insurance agent. Too many things. Way, way, way too many things. But going back to this conversation, I had the opportunity and the privilege of moderating the panel about the cooling down of the investment space, right? I had Andy from iCapital, David from InsurTech New York, and Nicole from now she's with Manchester Story, early on with GIA. Very, very talented and experienced panel. And one of the things it's all about, okay, great, we've seen the cooling down from 2022. Now we are Q1 2023. Just 2 days later, Andrew from Gallagher posted that things are actually picking up, or at least Q1 was better than Q4. What do you think? How do you see that, and especially the difference between MGAs that operate in the space versus pure technology that serve the insurance companies?
Yeah, I'll give you the most honest and a little bit lengthy answer that I can.
Listen, I
So,
made it such a lengthy question just to read the punchline, which was like a one-liner. But please go ahead, take
yeah,
as long as you need.
here's the punchline, the TLDR. I'm very bullish. But what happened, right? I think many years ago, a lot of bold entrepreneurs felt they could disrupt insurance. And like other industries where there was that potential, venture capital jumped in. And venture capital has a long history of doing this. VCs invest early on, they encourage entrepreneurs to think big, they encourage entrepreneurs to take more money and to run at problems. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But rarely does it work in the first act. And I think what we're closing up right now is the first act of InsurTech. There were some great ideas, there were some big innovators, and every one of them, in my book, deserves an award for their bravery, their courage, and their vision. Some worked out really well for investors, the entrepreneurs, the general insurance community.
Mm-hmm.
Others did not. But regardless, I think the ideas were amazing. And while there were some kind of hokey ones there, I think they had their role as well, like ideas that were long shots that didn't really make sense in hindsight. But at the time, made at least enough sense that people wanted to try it. And I admire all of those people for trying. I think, though, valuations got out of hand, mainly because venture capitalists wanted to deploy more capital and didn't really understand the way the insurtech industry or the insurance industry worked. Now we have more knowledge. And I think what we had at the end of last year, insurtech, I think, led the way down for venture capital. I think it's going to lead the way back up. A lot of us were scared. A lot of tourist investors got out because they realized they shouldn't be investing in an industry that they don't understand. The ones who stayed in the industry were the ones who are committed. And I think we're all very bullish on the space. There is a hiccup. I do think that MGAs that were overvalued will have a difficult time raising money because no one wants to be the bearer of bad news and recap a company or make an entrepreneur position an entrepreneur in a difficult way. But we're all still interested in the space.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've learned our lessons though. We're looking for capital efficiency. We're looking for profitable business models. While in other areas of technology, you can take a flyer that sooner or later the customer will be profitable. It's much harder to do it in insurance. And by the way, many insurance people said that to us years ago, but we didn't listen. That's okay. I think it's just part of the process. And now I think we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, you can do this intelligently, and we're going to take an intelligent approach. And most importantly, M&A is starting now. We're starting to see acquisitions by carriers, which I think is the best thing possible in this industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
Carriers purchasing, and I don't even care what the exit looks like. I don't care if it was good or bad for the investor. I don't care if it was good or bad for the entrepreneur. I think carriers getting into the space and buying up early entrance is an awesome thing for our industry, and that will make room for new entrants. That'll give a chance for entrepreneurs who tried the first time to come back in and try again. It'll give courage to those of us who have capital to deploy to try again. And while it may sound very foreign to the insurance industry, venture capitalists are used to losing money on ideas that didn't work and coming back in again and trying it again. So I think this is the beginning of a much more vibrant ecosystem that I think, really by mid 24 will be in full recovery mode. Um,
Yeah.
MGAs, I
Mhm.
think, will continue to get funded. I do think that there'll be different questions, though. I think there'll be different standards. And I think a much healthier MGA will come from it. And I think tools and technology will continue to get funded as well. But again, a different level of skepticism, a different level of kind of diligence. But more importantly, the customers, like the carriers, will be more eager to try these because they'll see that the MGAs are putting pressure on them. They'll see that they need to actually do the innovation and adopt the innovation as well. And I think you'll see a community that together is much more vibrant and much more focused on adopting technology. So I couldn't be more bullish. So the as I said before, the TLDR is I'm super excited about the space.
It will look more in my
Yeah, let's
yeah.
yeah, let's play that out a little bit for later stage companies right now
Hmm.
because this is a risk I think a lot outside of InsurTech are suffering from. And the motivation's a little bit different than what you're talking
Oh
about.
yeah.
But what we're seeing a real
Oh,
lot are series.
the seed part that they are not enough that you can use. That those are usually technology companies or
Yep,
people who want to be digital agents. For you, I
right.
assume that you see now also a lot of bridge, or we want to save to close the gap until we can actually do a proper equity raise. But please, sorry, the mic is yours.
Yeah, no, not at all. And but that scares me though, right? Like I think right now we're at a difficult time for the tech community because you do have this kind of concern around funding. What venture capitalists think about right now is who is going to fund the next round. That's what most of us think about. So if you come to us because you want a bridge, you just want to kind of hang in there until it's a little better, I think you're making a mistake. I think if you are doing well enough that you can raise money now. And don't raise a little, raise whatever you need to be successful, to your point. Because if you raise just enough, quote unquote, till things get better, one, you have no idea when things will get better. And two, you're trying to play the market, which is impossible to play. This down market could end next quarter, it could end in 2 years.
Hmm.
So why gamble? And in the end, everything levels out. I think over my career, I did 5 startups, three I started, two I joined. What I learned along the way is that you can have a beautiful cap table and run out of money and be bankrupt and end. That happened to me at one of my startups. Or you can have a really messy cap table and get all the way to the end and have a great exit. And it's just too many variables to actually game this.
Hmm.
I think you build a business that has good fundamentals. You don't listen when people tell you to overspend, but you also don't listen when people tell you to hold on or wait. If you can raise money and you need money, raise that much money, if not more, to make sure you can get through the next period and still be on your feet. And don't worry about things like valuations. They work themselves out in the end.
That's a
And
good
by the way, this
advice.
conversation started. Yeah, this conversation started in Q4 where people were anxious about raising. It's only gotten worse since then. The people who could have raised in Q4 but were scared because it looked bad, shame on them because they probably could have raised then and now they can't because they waited too long. So I just think there's just too much guesswork in this.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of if your company is if you need money, and I'm not a proponent always of taking venture capital, but if you need money and your company is doing well enough that you can raise right now, go for it and raise a lot. Don't raise enough just to get by. Raise what you need plus some, assuming that it's going to be a tough, quarter, 2 quarters, year, 2 years. Who knows?
Well, oh, we are running out of time, but let me add because I really love this topic, and you know, we learn from talking to people and their actions. And last year, I think that one of the uh, more, I would say, proactive investors. So I will add them as a smart money in the InsurTech space. Yeah, basically last year, this time at InsurTech Insights New York, not boasting, but was very proud to say that he told all of his portfolio companies, guys, start be more frugal, who you don't need, tighten the belt basically, because something is bad is coming,
Yep.
recession, etc. Which of course came to fruition. At the same time, we see also other investors starting to invest in pre-seed and seed, because let's assume it's in half a year or 2 years, as you said, when the market is going up again, everything is going to float with the market. Or or to be precise, that's the expectation, right?
Right.
But yeah, that has an impact, and we'll see. Basically, what I just said has no bottom line, doesn't no punchline, no bottom line, no big idea, and I'm going to edit this out. Finally, something to edit out.
I did think there was a punchline though,
Oh,
which is run your business like a good business.
that's bad.
You know.
Okay, I will not edit this out. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll keep it in. Only for only for what you said. Run your business. That's the most important part. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Okay, let's add, because, well, it is a pleasure, but we are passing the 52 minutes mark
Likewise.
in. Let me ask you the same question that I'm asking everyone who is joining the podcast and entertaining me and the audience. Can you give the audience a tip of, basically a good advice besides running your business?
Yeah. Well, I think it has. Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. I think if you have an idea that you know is going to work, you should make a run at it. And if you're making a run at it, make sure you understand how and why it's going to work, and raise the appropriate amount of capital if you need it to make that idea work. Don't play the market around valuations. Don't worry about the exit. Don't worry about these kind of like existential things. If you know your market and you know what has to happen, just run hard at making that happen and proving it. Simplify your explanation and your approach and just nail that piece. I think venture capitalists have played a role in kind of confusing the market over the last 5 6 years, pushing more money out, trying to get entrepreneurs to think bigger and bigger. I think the area that you want to kind of win in and beat, and just stay laser focused and get that done the right way, and don't listen to the external noise. And I think we look forward to meeting investors who have a clear vision, who are executing against it and proving that the vision's right. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a really big company yet, or really profitable yet, or even profitable. It just means that you are demonstrating that what you believe is actually working. Product market fit. That's what you have to prove. And I don't think any time's a bad time to be an entrepreneur. I think it's always a great time. So go for it. I'm always happy to help too if I can.
I love it. Which, of course, now I need to extend for them. So, upcoming in InsurTech Insights, I'm moderating a panel with the great investors. Again, I have Andy from my capital, and it's all about. And for that, I'm investing, right? That's the title. And one of the things that I keep telling as advice to customers, and from all the decks that I see, I don't care about the big numbers that you throw, all the TAM, etc. Because if I'm an investor in insurance, I know those numbers. If I don't know them, I'm in the wrong. I should know the macro numbers. I want to know if I'm going to give you now. In my say, I'm a placement agent, so when I'm going to the investor and telling them they are looking for 50 million, for 25 million, I need to know, what are you going to do with that 25 million, and how are you going to make a lot of money out of it, and how much what's the estimation of how much it's going to be. And it's the same thing. Focus. This is the blood of your company. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to turn that into business and increase it? The other stuff is, sorry for the language, a little bit of bullshit.
Yep.
Here is the money.
Agreed.
Go. What are you going to do with it? And of course, there is much, 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 much more than that, and a lot of other complexities. Okay, great. Enough, because otherwise we're going to jump into my next meeting and the next episode.
Sounds good.
David.
Thank you, my friend.
Likewise. And see you soon. I'll see you in New York. Will you be there in June?
Unfortunately, no. No, I won't, but I will see you soon thereafter, I'm sure. I'm going to make a trip down to LA to see you soon, though.
Even better. Cheers. Have a good one.